Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. TikTok. We're a day away from the biggest club match in the world. The tension's building up like crazy. Listen, I want to give you guys, some updates on some of the news that you may have heard about recently, and we'll talk about some subplots relating to the final. By the way, my head is spinning. I live really close to the Bernabeu, and I survived back-to-back Taylor Swift concerts, so that you could hear it from here. So my head is spinning, but we're going to power through this. Listen, I want to give you guys an update. You may have heard about the Rodrigo interview. We're going to clarify that because he has. We're going to talk about Al-Khalifi, who I think is losing his marbles. We'll talk about Pique, who could end up in jail, and then we'll talk about the Mbappe announcement. And then after that, I will talk, of course, about the final and some of the subplots that I think give a little bit of added juice to this final. But the tension level is enormous. It's going to be hard to sleep tonight. But, let's talk about all this stuff. Thanks for joining me as always. Let's get started. All right, my beloved Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, we're going to talk about the final, but first I want to get you guys up to speed on some of the, kind of news things you may have heard out there. Let's talk about this Rodrigo interview, and you guys may have heard about this. He was interviewed on a TV network called DAZN, and they asked him a bunch of questions, etc. And then when it was edited, it made it sound like Rodrigo said that, he would consider leaving the club one day, and he kind of opened up the possibility of leaving, and that's the way that it was presented by this TV network. Now, Rodrigo was furious about this. He put out a bunch of statements on social media, like this one, saying that it is absolutely untrue. His words were taken completely out of context. They edited the clips on purpose. He's incredibly happy at Madrid. He's making history here. This is the best club in the world, and he really clarified it. I think I read somewhere that he's even considering filing a lawsuit against the TV station. So if you did hear those headlines, because a few of you have asked me about it, it did make the rounds, but Rodrigo has completely dispelled it. So we need to put that to rest. I think he's going to stay here, and I think he's going to make history at this club. Okay, another news item that you may have heard about, and this is bordering on the insane. Okay, so Kylian Mbappe is a free agent, okay? At the end of the season in France, he's a free agent, and he has the right to go wherever he wants. Now, Al-Khalifi is still really apparently fuming about this. He's just fuming that Kylian will leave for free because it's just something that his mind can't seem to accept. So there was a report in L'Equipe. Now, it's important to remember that when any report comes out of L'Equipe, it probably comes from the Mbappe camp because his sort of entourage are close to L'Equipe. Whereas if a story comes out in Le Parisien, that tends to come from PSG management because they're quite tight. So this came from L'Equipe, and it was reports saying that Kylian Mbappe has not been paid his February bonus, which was 80 million. I can't remember if it was euros or dollars, but 80 million, and he wasn't paid his April salary. Because Al-Khalifi is just really pissed that he's leaving for free. It's not, he's a free agent, but, Al-Khalifi is sort of losing, this is kind of a power trip type thing. He's always said very controversial things about Mbappe. I remember once, a couple of years ago, he always said, I think it was 1 or 2 years ago, he said, Mbappe will never leave here for free, which is, that's just not possible. If your contract is over, you can leave. But it's not something that Khalifi seems to understand. And apparently, and this is the funny part, apparently he called Real Madrid and Florentino Perez and said that it's Real Madrid should pay the 80 million. And of course, Florentino, laughed or hung up or something like this. So anyway, Al-Khalifi is still putting up a fight about this Mbappe thing. And I feel bad because Mbappe will probably have to go to the courts and sue PSG for the money he's owed, which was contractual. But anyway, all right, let's move on. Now, Pique, you guys may have heard the story that, well, I did a video about this, and I talked about how, if you guys ever wonder why the Spanish Super Cup is played in Saudi Arabia, it's kind of like a bizarre format with 4 teams, etc. This was an invention of Pique and Rubiales, so the head of the Spanish Football Federation, and Pique, who was an active player at the time, and they set up a company to move the Super Cup to Saudi Arabia. Of course, made millions in the process. This is, of course, incredibly shady. There are conflicts of interest all over the place, and the Spanish authorities have clamped down on it. So the news yesterday was that Pique has been indicted, so he will be formally, prosecuted. So it's, I don't know what to say. I mean, it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. So Pique, has quite a few legal troubles coming his way. And then finally, in terms of updates, so the Mbappe announcement, I told you guys weeks ago, maybe 2-3 months ago, that you were never going to get an official announcement from Real Madrid until after the season. But I'm going to tell you what I think about when the announcement comes. If we win the Champions League tomorrow, they'll wait 3 or 4 days because they will honor this group of players for their incredible accomplishment. The city will celebrate this group of players, and Real Madrid would never make an announcement or allow Kylian to do so and interrupt the honor and the respect that these players deserve. So I would expect it to be 3 or 4 days after if we win. Now, if we lose, it'll probably be 24 hours, afterwards. That's kind of a way of healing, dealing with the pain and trying to think about positive things. So, but I do think it will be in the next 6-7 days for sure, under either circumstance. Okay, now let's move on to the final. I'm nervous as hell. I was discussing this with my uncle, and we can't figure out why we're so nervous this time. I feel uneasy. I don't know why I feel more nervous this time than I did against Liverpool the last 2 finals. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because, we're so heavily favored. I don't know if it's because we've had so many upsets in the last few days, the FA Cup and the Europa League and Confederations Cup, et cetera. I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely feeling very, very anxious about this. So the tension level is incredibly high. Now, there are some really interesting subplots, as you guys know, going into this final. One of them, which I think is really, really cool, is the whole Ballon d'Or issue and Vini and Jude. They both had spectacular years. No matter what news outlet or media outlet you listen to, these 2 guys are favored to win the Ballon d'Or. Now, we need to obviously play the Euro Cup and the Copa America, so, there's still a lot of football to be played. But I can tell you that the final of a Champions League, the performance in a final of a Champions League will weigh very heavily on the scale in either direction. So it's going to be really interesting to see. And one thing I want to mention, which is really cool, is that every time they interview Jude or Vini, Jude always says Vini's the best, he deserves it. And Vini always says Jude's the best, he deserves it. There's a camaraderie and an elegance and a class that kind of permeates this squad that I really, really love. These are really classy players, and they have such an amazing relationship. It's just really cool to watch. The second kind of interesting subplot, obviously, is Toni Kroos retiring, and he already has 5 of these things, which, the idea that somebody could have 6, and of course it would be Modric as well and Nacho, but Carvajal. But the idea that somebody could retire with 6 of these. The only person that has 6 in the world is Paco Gento, who was part of that incredible generation, winning the first 5, and then another one later on. But when I was growing up, I used to think that Maldini, Paolo Maldini having 4 was like some sort of insurmountable mountain that will never be achieved by anybody. And the idea that Toni Kroos could retire with 6 is just unbelievable, and I really hope we win it. That's another added incentive. Okay, number 3, Marco Reus. There's a lot of emotion in Borussia. This is a veteran player who's never left the club. He's been very loyal to Borussia throughout his whole career. A wonderful player, very adored in Dortmund. And this, there's a lot of emotion behind Dortmund in this final because it would sort of honor Marco Reus's career at Dortmund. So there's a lot of sentimentality, on the other side as well. And it'll be interesting to see, how many minutes Marco gets to play. Another anecdote that I think is kind of interesting, which will hopefully weigh. The last time Borussia played at Wembley, it was the final against Bayern Munich, and you'll remember this goal by Robin. You remember that, like, tortuously slow, and the ball just kind of, he dribbles in slowly. So Borussia lost that final to Bayern Munich. That was the last time they played in Wembley, and hopefully a bit of that will carry on. And then, 5, another thing that I would mention, which is kind of an interesting undercurrent, and I don't know if this contributes to my nervousness, but in all the interviews of the Borussia players, and Terzic, the coach especially, their manager, they speak very confidently. I mean, they seem very calm. They're very confident. They don't. You're not hearing a lot of this deference to Real Madrid, like the way Tuchel would speak about having to play against a myth. No, they're calm. They're very confident, and in the interviews they sort of say, no, we know exactly what we need to do, and we're going to do it. They just seem very calm, and they have nothing to lose. So it's maybe one of the things that's just making me nervous about this. But anyway, let's zoom out a little bit and think about how big this is. What would a victory? I mean, if we win, what would it mean? I mean, it would be hard to describe. I mean, to 15. I mean, to have 15 European Cups, knowing that the team with the second, but it has 7. 15 is incredible. And it would be 15 out of 18 finals, which is, it's incomprehensible. And I challenge anyone to find anything in any other sport with a record in finals like this. It's insane. Even 14 out of 17 is already crazy, but 15 out of 18. And another thing it would represent is that we would have won 6 Champions Leagues in 11 years. Now, we've seen amazing things in the past, the great Bayern Munich legacy, the Ajax legacy, the Milan legacy, the great Barca, etc. Nobody did this. I mean, the great Barca that was supposed to be so great won 3, one of them highly controversial. But you've had teams win sort of 3. I mean, the only comparable thing that we can think of is Real Madrid winning 5 in a row in the 50s. But this just, to win 6 in 11 years, I think that we would have to acknowledge that this is the greatest team of all time. This is the greatest club side of all time. And I don't know why we don't say that more often. But anyway, it would be an absolutely incredible feat. And like I say, I'm really looking forward to it, and nervous as hell. So listen, I just wanted to share a little update with you guys. I think next time I speak to you will probably be after the match. So I don't know what condition I'll be in, but we'll see. But listen, as always, thanks for joining me, and thank you for subscribing in the comments and everything. I really appreciate it. So fingers crossed. Let's pray. And as always, a la Madrid.